All right, welcome back. We're on a slightly reduced quality now, so we are looking at slightly less kilobits per second for any of our friends with slightly slower connections. And we are trying to grab another game in the Intergalactic Colusseum Season 7, and we are underway with Week 2. And we are looking at a couple of different matchups here. We have got, let me just look up my table, we have got UEF facing VOR, and we have got JEW facing off against BAW, or the Break-A-Wish Foundation. So we're just trying to grab a little bit of a replay, find something. So how are you going with that Mephi replay? Beast Mode Guns.
I'm loading it right now, and I'll be able to confirm here. Just make sure it's the right thing. And actually, I'll have to pass on. I just double check that one. I guess that one is it's an interclan match at the moment. I'm not sure if they've actually played against JEW yet. Let me check the matchups. No, they have not. So I don't know what's going on there. Looks like we'll have to go back to that other thing, which is the third round of Turin versus RoboGear, since they did have to play the third match. I think due to that draw that we saw earlier.
Alright, so we're just loading that game up now. Do you know how the second game went? Have you got any feedback from that at this point?
The second game for Turin, or the
Yes. So we saw a draw first up, and
I didn't really ask in the VIW chat. Unfortunately, I didn't ask around, so I'm not entirely sure.
alright.
Uh,
Anyway, let's jump over to Desert Planet 2, where we're going to see the third of the 1 versus 1. So, of course, the IGC is made up of 6-player teams, and they actually fight in various formats. And this is one of the 1 versus 1s. And in the north, we have got RoboGear. He has opted for UEF. We can see him throwing down his first land factory. Then he's going on for a little bit of power, grabbing those core mexes. And his opponent down in the south, Turin Taramba, opting for Cybern. We can see he's going for a single PGN, and then he's going to be rushing the Hydro. So a little bit of variance there, because we can see RoboGear is throwing down just a tad more power initially before heading out and grabbing the Hydro. Any predictions? So I've got Beast Mode Guns on stream here with me. He is nicely co-hosting this with me, and we're going to go to him for a little bit of a prediction. So in the first game we saw a draw. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
well, my prediction isn't too much different, but after that performance, I think after that performance, though, it made me realize one thing. I have changed my opinion from slightly in Turin's favor to either way, because I mean, RoboGear has shown his capability to hold on. He did beat one of the he managed to draw here with Turin. He did beat one of the higher level SNF players last weekend of 1v1. I think that was Inquisitor over Raid Noob. So he's shown some really good some pretty decent tournament pedigree here from the JEW team here for the 1v1. And of course Turin is pretty decent himself. So I think it's going to go either way. It's hard for me to call after what I've witnessed from RoboGear.
Alright, so how's the expansion getting on? We can see that RoboGear is starting to get a few engineers out. He's grabbing the reclaim, then he's heading over towards those mexes. He's going to move out to the left and throw down a land factory. He hasn't made any moves. Well, actually we can see exactly the same in the south for him. He is going to use an engineer. We haven't seen any movement from the ACU yet. He's completed his hydro, but the ACU is still back at home building, well, those T1 PGNs and a bit more air. So it looks like he may have built a lot of power, especially compared to Turin Taramba's 160. He's actually sitting on 240, so he has spammed up his PGNs quite heavily in this one. Both these guys getting their air factories down, getting a little bit more power, and we can see there's actually another air factory and land there for Turin Taramba, and probably not so much in the way of factories back at home. And actually RoboGear building 2 air factories simultaneously, that's going to be a little bit slower for him, so I wonder if he completely intended to do that, and we can see a bomber just starting on the platform of that air factory, and there's actually already a bomber out for Turin-Taramba, so he's beaten RoboGear to the punch just a little bit. And there's also a raiding party coming out, so there's a couple of hunters, well actually two hunters and a scout with them, and they're going up to try and pick off any engineers. There is a single tank, a striker on guard duty for that engineer for RoboGear, so we'll see how well they can do to defend. And there is a bomber out now for RoboGear as well. Okay, so the raiding party is heading up, and interestingly, the bomber and the raiding party are both going to the same side, which is maybe not the most useful thing, because any expanding engineers would be able to get taken up by one or the other, but not both, obviously, and that would leave a little bit more of a free movement there for RoboGear in the south to be able to expand. And interestingly, that bomber is scooting all the way down to the outside and being forgotten about for maybe just a second. He's now been issued some orders. He is heading back in towards there. There are a couple of interceptors. It looks like Turin-Taramba has managed to pick up on the existence of that bomber, and those interceptors are going to deal to that before it is able to do anything. And we can see actually the raiding party there for Turin-Taramba shifting and heading across to the center. They're probably going to pick up the engineer on radar. Let's see. Yes, he has, and he has redirected those labs, and they have come in to take out that engineer, and he will be disappearing shortly. And what happened to the bomber for Turin-Taramba? Did you see what happened there?
No, I did unfortunately miss it.
There are a few bombers online for RoboGear making a bit of a nuisance of themselves back at base, and it looks like the interceptors are all focusing on one bomber and leaving this other one free to do a little bit of damage. It has managed to get a second pass and do some more damage. There's a little bit of a chance that he could take out those pigeons if he was able to get around again, but unfortunately the interceptors turn around and they take him out. So a bit of an air advantage there for Turin-Taramba. It looks like RoboGear has maybe invested a little bit too much in bombers to not much effect yet. There is still an engineer expanding out here for Turin-Taramba. He is going to safely get out to that point, and well, it looks like the bombers did manage to deny the expansion here. We can see the dead engineer, and that was trying to put down a radar, but that does mean that it will be a little bit of a delay for Turin-Taramba to come out and claim this right expansion. And he is actually sitting on 17 mass per tick, which is exactly the same as RoboGear. So these guys are going neck and neck for mass at this point. The ACU just a little bit further ahead for RoboGear. He has managed to get out, and he is doing a little bit of reclaim before throwing down that first land factory. So slight advantage in terms of expansion to RoboGear. How many land factories have these guys got down? We can see there's 4 land factories back home for RoboGear. He's got one out there, and he's throwing down another one here with his ACU. And that compares to, well, there's 4 back home for Turin-Taramba, and he actually doesn't have any expanding ones yet, so just a little bit more advantage in terms of factories and build power to RoboGear at this point. And both these guys actually gathering a little bit of an air force, and it looks pretty even. I think there may just be a slight advantage to Turin-Taramba because there are a few bombers that RoboGear has been pumping out as well, which is just going to reduce that interceptor count ever so slightly. And well, interestingly, there's a nice stream of units coming out from Turin-Taramba, and they're just heading up, trying to deny this expansion. We can see they're heading all the way into the center there, just trying to pick off any engineers which are expanding. And actually, this engineer is completely unguarded right now. It looks like the escort that he had has headed south, and they're going to go and try and do a little bit of damage of their own, but I'm not sure that that is going to work terribly well because the ACU is down there for RoboGear, and it does leave this engineer vulnerable. We can see that the ACU has moved off after building this factory, and a Mantis is coming in, so that Mantis is going to be able to start doing a little bit of damage. And so far, only engineers out for RoboGear, so those engineers not going to have a good time against the Mantis, and the ACU is busy building up here. So it will be a little bit of time before the tanks for RoboGear can actually get out and deal with that Mantis, and it means that he's probably going to lose this engineer with that factory, which is about 75% complete, and that is going to be a little bit of a loss for him because that engineer does go down. And there are bombers floating around in the south here, the interceptors ready to jump into action for Turin Taramba and take out anything that they find. Just that one bomber left, and well, he's going to work on the little raiding units there for Turin Taramba, but not managing to do a heck of a lot of damage before getting shot down. The expansion is online, but starting to come under fire. So there's a couple of raiding units in here for RoboGear. The Mantis here probably would be able to deny that, but unfortunately they are slightly out of position, and it might mean that the tanks here can actually get in and take it out before he completes that factory. And actually he's abandoning the factory and trying to get that engineer out to safety. I'm not sure whether he'll be able to do that. I'm not sure if RoboGear has actually spotted that. It looks like those tanks may just head south and miss that engineer completely, which means he's free to head back and complete that land factory. There is another engineer which is just on reclaim duty, and it looks like they probably will be able to take him out. This tank is heading back. He's just going to sit beside that factory. He's not going to be able to do a lot of work before the Mantis come in and deal with him. Still a bomber online here for Turin Taramba, getting to work on the T1 army, doing a little bit of damage. We can see there's a few wrecks lying around, and there's a lot more bombers coming in. So Turin Taramba actually making good use of the air control that he does have, because he has managed to shut down the airplay for RoboGear reasonably well. RoboGear does have a number of intercepts online, but there's just a nice stack there for Turin Taramba, and those interceptors are coming into play now, and they might be able to take out a few of those bombers. Is there going to be a reaction here? There is not. Oh, here it comes, and Turin Taramba has lifted those guys off the ground, and they are going to get in and do a little bit of damage, but it looks like he's going to lose a few bombers before anything happens with those guys. Nice bit of scouting here from Turin Taramba. He will be aware of exactly where RoboGear's ACU is, because he is floating around there. A nice turn there for RoboGear, manages to take out a lot of interceptors, and that's actually going to swing definitely in RoboGear's favour. So some very nice micro there, gives air control over to RoboGear, and he manages to take that out. He will be able to then dispatch those bombers and deal with them, but they have done quite a lot of work, and well, I'm not sure whether that paid off. It definitely slowed the expansion for RoboGear, took out a number of engineers. It happened to the T1 army, but he did have quite a lot of bombers. It must have been about 10 bombers now that he's invested in assaulting that right-hand side, and he has not managed to do it.
You're looking now. RoboGear does have a Tech 2 land now, it looks like. Yes, a Tech 2. Yeah, Tech 2 land factory. He is upgrading another one as well. He's going to go for Tech 2 span. We are seeing a few pillars on the field, as well as a Tech 2 engineer. It's going to be building Tech 2 power. But Gear does have a smaller mass eco. He is going to be stalling, as you can see, minus 30 approximately, but that's going down a little bit. He's still going to be stalling, although he will have that slight Tech 2 advantage there from a couple of pillars.
And it looks
on the right
like
side.
Turin Taramba is thinking about grabbing a bit of reclaim there, stealing it out from under the nose of RoboGear. He just about dropped his engineers into a pile of red units, but he thought better of that and pulled them away just at the last second and managed to save those engineers, and he's scooting around up to the north, and he's going to put them down there, and that's going to mean that he can pick up a little bit of reclaim. But unfortunately a pillar has redirected in his general direction, and those engineers may not survive particularly long, especially with some more pillars rolling in from the north. RoboGear still holding on to that air advantage that he won very, very nicely, and it does mean that he is able to bring bombers into play. I'm not sure that he's actually got any left though. It looks like, well, there's a couple. There's 3 up there ready to go. They could be useful here in helping deal with this T1 army since they're not doing anything. There is a PD going down, so that PD's been managed to complete from Turin Taramba, and he's going to be able to take out a reasonable amount of the units that RoboGear is sending towards him, because that PD has got walls up. So a nice bit of play, but unfortunately all those engineers have gone down, and that does mean that there is a PD stranded out in the middle of nowhere, and it will be able to go down to the T1 bombers and any Lobos, even a single Lobo that RoboGear decides to throw together. And there's a little bit of an assault coming down onto Turin Taramba's right-hand expansion here. Unfortunately for RoboGear, the ACU is right there, and there's only a single pillar in that army, and that's not going to do too well at all. a minor engagement there, fighting for this pass, and there's a slight advantage there for RoboGear. He's going to be able to clear that, and well, actually Turin holds the centre, and he has got a PD up. He's got the 2 mass extractors, and he's going to grab all the reclaim and a radar station as well. So that's going to give him a little bit of intel, and interestingly, there is a Mantis slipping around the wall sections there and starting to go to work on the mass extractors up here for RoboGear, and RoboGear does not want to lose any more mass extractors at this point because he is already 11 mass per tick in disadvantage to Turin, who's been throwing down upgrades in the back. He's just about got T2 power completed as well. And how is the T2 power going for RoboGear? He has got 1 complete, and he has got a few T2 mechs upgrades as well. So there's a lot of engineers actually sitting idle in RoboGear's base right now. Let's see if he's got the eco to spend. He does not have a lot in storage at the moment, so he's not going to be able to make a lot of use of all those extra NGs just yet. And some scouts going overhead so that he can see what Turin is up to. Unfortunately for them, there is a large cloud of interceptors rolling in, and well, unfortunately for Turin, they fly right past the scouts and let them through. So that will be eyes on Turin main base for RoboGear, and those scouts will go down momentarily, but it will give RoboGear a little bit of insight into how the eco is going for Turin. And those bombers going to work in the centre there, just about finished with that PD. 75 hit points left on it. A tracer is going up from that engineer, but I'm not sure it's going to be in time to save anything. If those bombers were to redirect onto the engineer, then they would easily be able to take out this entire centre section. But as I say that, the interceptors do roll in for Turin, take out the bombers that did manage to get that PD and finish that off, and the ACU for RoboGear coming into a bit of a fight here in the centre, and that is against a few raiding Mantis, and there are some bombers coming in from RoboGear as well to try and dismantle those. The interceptors do roll in for RoboGear and manage to fend off the Air Force there for Turin. I think it's still a little bit of an advantage, definitely an advantage there to RoboGear, but it would come down to Micro because we saw he managed to wrestle that air control away from Turin last time with a slightly fewer number of interceptors. Alright, how's the north? It looks like Turin, well, he's got this expansion over here. RoboGear is perhaps trying to assault it just a little bit, although he's actually put down wall sections, and it's probably something that's a little bit vulnerable because there's only half a dozen Mantis at the moment. So if he is able to use T1 bombers and make sure he has an air screen with those interceptors, he could entirely dismantle that expansion over there for Turin, or he could bring some of these pillars in and deal with that pretty effectively. There's not a lot on the ground.
Interestingly enough, Turin has actually just finished a Tech 3 Land Factory upgrade. He hasn't really done much Tech 3, and he's gone... much Tech 2, and he's gone straight for Tech 3. So we are actually going to be seeing Loyalists out in the field now from Turin. He has had the superior eco, and of course that will be his advantage. Loyalists will be very mobile, and of course, being Tech 3, and they do some nice damage, and they do have that stun as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how he uses them. I think he'll send them on the right side, but we'll have to wait and see. But those Loyalists should hopefully give him a nice harassment edge.
Interestingly, RoboGear's had a reasonable advantage in land forces for quite some time now. He's had a lot of pillars online, and Turin just hasn't really fielded anything to match that. We've seen that he's skipped T2 entirely. I don't think he produced a single Rhino, and he's gone straight up for Loyalists, which means that all of the T2 pillars that RoboGear has had on the field for the last 5 minutes, those guys could have actually gotten in and do quite a lot of damage. I mean, these 2 pillars right here, they are going to be a pretty good match for the Mantis that Turin got there, and with a little bit more in support, there's some more pillars rolling up as well. He would actually be able to do a lot of damage to the eco of Turin without a lot of cost, but unfortunately he's sat back in his base just a little bit too much and built units which haven't really been doing a lot of work, and given Turin that opportunity to get Loyalists, and he's got 3 moving forward now, and there is a 4th one just sitting back at base. And it looks like Turin is actually just bringing his ACU back. He's decided that he's got enough of an advantage. He doesn't need his ACU at the front line anymore. He's going to bring him back to safety. Of course, the Cybran ACU doesn't have a lot of HP on it. Has he got any upgrades at all? No, he's sitting on 10,000 HP, which is, of course, the starting figure for a Cybran ACU. So we can see that he hasn't thrown any upgrades down. And I think we'll probably see something fairly similar for RoboGear. Yes, so still sitting on 12k HP. Those 2 pillars rolling on in, doing quite a lot of damage. They are able to dismantle those Mantis as they roll through. They're both fairly heavily damaged, but they can walk right through those last few Mantis and start doing a little bit of damage. They are going to come under fire from this main group. I'm not sure whether they'll be able to do too much more before they do run out of hit points, but there is of course another force coming in. Unfortunately just a little bit late for RoboGear because there are a couple of loyalists there which are going to be a problem for him. We've got loyalists moving into the center here, and actually there is a couple of rhinos, so there are a few out for Turin Taramba. We've got some pillars moving in on the south here. They are going to be able to take out that radar, maybe do a little bit of damage to the eco. The loyalists have disappeared into the center for Turin Taramba, which does leave this expansion a little bit vulnerable. The pillars over on the left side, they did die after a decent fight. There are still 4 Mantis remaining. Unfortunately, they did not do any eco damage at all, and we can see there's actually a transport with a loyalist on board, so he's going to just go and drop those right up in that expansion there and cause a little bit of a problem for RoboGear. So he's actually done a T3 upgrade himself. He has got a Percival on the field. He is loading that onto a transport, and he is bringing that down into his right-hand expansion where he's going to try and combat those loyalists which have been ripping through the eco that he has had on that side. And there's actually another transport dropping another loyalist. So Turin Taramba doing a fantastic job of getting loyalists all over the map and just causing mayhem. There is already one Percival in the area, and a second one has just landed, and they are going to go to work on those loyalists and
Of course, Turin will have to micro now because a Percival can two-shot loyalist, but luckily since the Percival only has that one single projectile that fires a little slow, it can be microed. And of course that will be a epic difference between the survival or death of those loyalists.
And we can see that loyalist going to work on the mexes up in the north, and so there's starting to be a few Percivals floating around there for RoboGear, but he does need to make sure those get into position, and there's at the moment nothing to answer this loyalist in the top. There are the two loyalists, I should say, in the center there, and another Percival dropping in to do a little bit of damage, some pillars rolling in to try and fend off those guys, and the ACU as well to overcharge. So he's now rebuilding his eco in the center here. We've got some engineers coming in to reclaim, and Turin Taramba does need to make sure that he does enough damage to make it worth dropping all that reclaim in close proximity to RoboGear's engineers. This loyalist has actually escaped from the clutches of the Percival, and he's heading up towards the main base. There is another Percy online which does need to move into position a little bit more. It looks like this loyalist is going to run around the outside. There is a T1 mech which is probably going to go down, but then there are a couple of T2 mechs around the back here which he definitely does not want to lose, and a pretty good advantage looking to Turin Taramba in the air. Looks like RoboGear is starting to he's actually wanting to avoid an air fight at this time because he is moving those interceptors away. He's actually going to come in now that those guys are heading home for Turin Taramba and try and pick them off from behind and do as much damage as he can, and that looks like it's actually working really well. I wonder if Turin Taramba has just forgotten to micro those guys a little bit, or hasn't noticed that they're actually coming under fire. There he goes, he's turned around and engaging.
Yeah, he did want to try to pull him away because there was flak there from Robo, which is why he had to turn around in the first place. So, I mean, that isn't a bad decision from him, and as we can see now, it is working out. I guess Superior Microing is going to give him the edge. There is a support wing coming in from a RoboGear of what appears to be interceptors that are outfield, but will still fight regardless. But it looks like Turin will be getting the air control here, just based on these numbers that you can see.
And both these guys trading blow for blow in terms of knocking out the expansion. So we can see on the left here, the entire expansion has been demolished by RoboGear, and that has helped knock down the eco of Turin Taramba. And on the right hand side, the loyalists have knocked down that expansion for RoboGear, and these guys are actually not too different in mass income right now. We're talking about 63 for Turin Taramba, jumping up to 67, and 55 for RoboGear. So still a little bit of an advantage, but not quite what it was looking like it was going to be. And there's obviously been a decent amount of reclaim drop down for RoboGear to pick up, and he's still got Percivals in the area to keep that safe from raiding engineers trying to steal that mass. And a pretty significant T2 and slight T3 army moving in the center there for RoboGear. He's going to come straight down, and I'm not sure there's enough to stop it. There's 6 loyalists. The ACU is getting an upgrade in the base there for Turin Taramba, but there are a bunch of pillars and a few Perseus. Well, actually, just the one Percy, because this guy is heading off towards the centre of the map, and they're going to come under fire from T1 bombers. So now the advantage for air is coming into play for Turin Taramba, and he's able to use those T1 bombers to just knock away a bunch of HP off those units before they even arrive at the base.
Yeah. And of course, funny enough, Turin has 7 air factories, actually about 8 air factories active in making these Tech 1 bombers. So if long as he's able to keep the air control, he can really start to bomb down those Percivals without having to endanger his loyalists as much.
Often we see that players will switch up to bombers once they do have that interceptor control, but that does of course give the other player a chance to rebuild their interceptor forces while there are no new interceptors coming online for the other player. So we'll see if that happens here. It does look like a pretty significant advantage there to Turin Terrain, but it will be some time before there are enough interceptors online for Robogear to be able to combat that. And those bombers
Robogear is focusing a significant amount of engineers, well, about a dozen or so engineers, to building interceptors, trying to get that up. There is a loyalist drop there in his base. It does finish off that Tech 2 mechs.
I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get to any more loyalist play because there are a bunch of Corsairs hammering the ACU in the north there down to 3,900 HP.
Oh.
He's got no AA online. He's got a few flak floating around, but unfortunately not in the vicinity. The Corsairs T1 bombers are just going to finish Robogear off, and he is about to explode, and 100 HP, and there he goes. So, the air control definitely paying off at Turin Taramba, and that is that. So I'm not sure what the result was for the second match of this 3 or best of 3, so I wonder if that brings it up to 1-1 or if that is actually a win for Turin Taramba.
I'll have to check the IGC matchup thing quickly. Yeah, the IGC, on the IGC matchups, it did go to Turan, and it looks like, let me check. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to drop out here in a bit earlier, as I said, but no, wow, this match, if you look at the IGC matchups sheet for an update, to update, you have that link, yeah?
The document one? Yes, I do have that.
Yeah, as you can see, all the 1v1, 2v2 matches have been complete. It looks like JEW did have to forfeit one of their BAW matches. As you can see, VOR has pretty much mostly stomped through their matches, although it looks like there was an error there with actually no, never mind. Yeah, VOR has won all their match sets. So from what I can see, it looks like, I guess, York and their other matches, I'm guessing the BAW, of course, BAW did pull theirs off. Oxide did seem to be man reading his. JEW actually did beat BAW in their 2v2s from the looks of it. They put in Gaib and Jorgi, some of the high raids, and now the 3v3s are going to be taking place on Finn's Revenge. And interestingly enough, UEF and the VOR match, it's going to be Steinklotz, Siwana Dathwin or whatever. I think
Siwana Dathnewissen or something like that.
Yeah, and Commander Dama versus interesting enough, Gorton. Gorton's actually playing now. Some people do know him as Norton. Hastened is playing as well, and Alex. And
right.
actually, it looks like that's just been posted. It looks like VOR actually won. Unfortunately, UEF is down a player. The infamous LIL Sid LIL actually has received the ban.
He's what? Sorry, he has received a ban. Do we know what that was for?
I'm gonna reading on the forum. He received from Norton for various reasons. His main account is banned for a month, and his rating is being put down to 1800. And his secondary account, LIL Sid LIL is permaban for abusing multiple accounts, the multiple accounts, and something about rules to change rating and using friends to change rating, and several other cases of rule breaking. And he was one of UEF's higher level players. He even though he is a bit overrated, to be honest, he is a, he did play. He is still a decent player regardless. But that is going to be one player down for UEF for this competition.
That is very, very interesting. All right, so
Yeah.
I do.
And
Sorry.
oh, sorry, and then of course for the JW matchup, it appears Gaib met for the 3v3. Got Gaib, Georgian Robo Gear against Postal, Tagada, and Miffy. And they haven't played it either, so I mean, if you want to get into one of those, I am gonna have to step out.
All right, so I'm going to jump into the Finn's Revenge game with Gorton, Olex, and Haznard fighting against Commander Damasia, Wona, Daphne, whatever it is, and Steinklotz. So we're going to head over to the match and get that underway. All right, so you're going to head off now, Mr. Guns?
I think I'm just gonna go ahead and mute my stuff, and thanks for having me for now. Maybe I'll be back. If not, thanks for having me aboard. I'm glad to have been here again.
No problem, and thank you for your input. All right, thank you, Beast Mode Guns. All right, so we have got VOR playing against UEF, and let's go to the introduction. So we have got Gorton in bright red. He has gone for Aeon. He is throwing down his first land factory, and he's going to get some power underway before heading over to the Hydro. We have got Haznard back here in the rear support slot. He has opted for Seraphim. He is throwing down a first air factory. He's going to get a couple of PGens, and we'll see if he's going to get a first bomber out of there or if he's going to focus on economy. And assisting these guys is Olex in bright pink. No, that's not hot pink. That is just baby pink. And he has opted for Aeon, so he is probably going to be doing a little bit of Aurora spam. We can see he's going to go for that Hydro fairly early on. In the south, the opponents for these guys, we can see there is Commander Adama. He is opting for Seraphim, and he is going blue. We have got Steinklotz going first air actually as well, because he is in the rear support position. He is UEF, and then we have got Sio. If anybody knows how to say this name, then please tell me. And he is going Aeon. He is yellow, and he's got his first land factory down. He's throwing down some more PGens and grabbing his initial expansions. Alright, and let's see how the rating is going on. We see there's a scout out there for Haznard, so that'll be giving a lot of good intel to VOR for this match. And we've got a little scout running up there that is a Selene for Seraphim, of course, and he is going to be providing a little bit of radar coverage. And actually he's doing that funny little trick, and many of you will know, but in case you didn't, if you take a Selene, you set him to hold fire and he is not moving, he is actually going to be cloaked, which means you can't see him unless you have Omni. And if you set him over a mass extractor point, any engineer trying to build on that mass extractor point is actually going to sit there and stall while the Selene is there. So he is just trying to deny that, and we'll see how long it takes Olex to realize that's what's going on and put a stop to it. That scout is still out there for Haznard, so VOR is going to be well aware of exactly what is going on down in the UEF camp at this point. So far, no one is moving for this North Island, but there is a couple of units heading out. Well, it looks like the engineer was thinking about heading out for Olex, but unfortunately for him, Sirwona has put a stop to that with this Aurora. So a couple of counter Auroras popping out there for Olex. There is one coming into range. He does need to make sure he has got radar coverage to make use of that, and I don't know that Olex has actually got any radar yet, so that is going to put that Aurora at a little bit of a disadvantage because he doesn't have the coverage he needs, and those two guys are going at it. Actually, Olex is managing to do a very nice job of micro there and taking down that Aurora without too much hassle. He's got 18 hit points left after that exchange. Both the ACUs are moving to the center here for Sirwona and Haznard, so that is the rear support player for VOR against the right hand player for UEF, and those guys are going to come into contact with each other. Haznard deciding just to back up a little bit. He doesn't want to get into too much trouble. There's a few units coming in for support. Those Auroras will be able to lay down a little bit more. A little bit of a build there for Sirwona, trying to capture Haznard and mess up his pathfinding, obviously thinking that he has an opportunity there to get a kill on Haznard and, well, at least get him down into a low enough HP bracket that he would be out of the game for a little while. We've also got the two ACUs here, which are just about to face off, I would think. And the engineer out here for Gorton is coming under fire from a bomber, and that is successful. So that is a denial. There are a couple of interceptors coming in for Hazened, and they will be able to deal with that bomber, but unfortunately it did take out that engineer after he'd trekked all the way out nearly to the island, and that is going to set the expansion back a little bit. We do have a single Aurora out. That was the one remaining from that exchange. He has come out to try and guard the island against any engineers, and so far there is a single unescorted engineer from Sirwona, and that guy does need a little bit more support, otherwise he will die to that Aurora. I'm not sure that he can quite get in range. There's only 18 hit points left, but he probably won't be able to manage it unless he is very, very lucky and gets a reclaim on that. The ACU now coming into play here for Hazened. He is coming forward. He's starting to do a little bit of damage to the main base. He's going to take out that core mechs. That is a little bit of eco damage. That brings Sirwona, well, he was on 12, so he's probably going to drop down to, well, I was going to say 10 because the mass extractor is worth 2. He is currently sitting on 11. Leading the pack is Commander Adama on 17 mass per tick. Behind him is Steinklotz at 15 mass per tick. So that is a little bit of an eco advantage to the south. So it looks like the north, so the VOR clan, focusing just a little bit more on getting units online, and the south team, that's UEF, just focusing a little bit more on eco. And that ACU there for Hazened taking a little bit of fire. He's down into the yellow. He is going to have to back up. He's probably going to jump into the water and get an upgrade. We can see Olex actually coming in. Now he has got his ACU with a gun upgrade, and he is going to start laying down fire on Steinklotz. He does want to avoid taking too much fire from the number of Auroras floating around, and actually, interestingly, a bunch of fake PD there for Sirwona. So he's trying to fool Olex and Hazened into backing up because they think there is a bunch of, well, PD online, but there in fact is not. So there are now 2 ACUs in the area, both Sirwona and Steinklotz. They are going to be able to push Olex back a little bit. Even though Olex does have that gun, it does mean that he probably doesn't want to take on 2 ACUs. He does have Hazened backing him up, still sitting on 6100 HP. And that means he probably can't do a lot of work. Actually, both these guys down into the yellow, and, well, Sirwona looking a little bit dangerous here because he is coming in between the ACUs for Olex and Hazened. He will probably need to jump into the water to avoid taking too much fire. And it looks like the action is going to be converging on the right-hand side a little bit because Commander Adama is actually coming over to join the fray as well. So we're probably going to see all 3 ACUs from the UEF clan in this right-hand side of the map. And it looks like Olex is actually continuing to push forward. He's got enough Auroras there to do a little bit of damage. There's a few in here on guard duty for Sirwona. I'm not sure whether they will be able to push right through. Are they going to just maybe back up a little bit? And is there a fervor in the mix? I thought I saw one. Perhaps it's just been killed. And boom, we have got our first ACU ejection. And that is Sirwona. So that is the yellow player. He did manage to get taken down, and Olex ecstatic. We can see his joy being expressed in the chat there, and that is going to bring this match heavily in favor of the VOR clan. Olex is very, very close to death. That was almost a mutual. He's sitting on 300 HP right now, so very, very close to dying, but he did manage to take out Sirwona on the right for the UEF clan, and that's going to be a big problem. The ACU is on hand there for Steinklotz. He's going to immediately get to work on a Tech 1 land factory and start to spam out engineers to be able to pick up the pieces of Sirwona's base and maybe try and do a little bit of damage. We can see, though, that Commander Adama has actually shifted up to T2, and, well, his base is actually coming under attack from the gun upgraded commander of Gorton now. So that is going to be a little bit of a problem. He doesn't actually have any fighting units online on this side of the map. He's going to lose. He does have a Tech 2 engineer, but that goes down to the gun from the ACU. And this is a very, very dangerous looking position because there just are not enough units online for Commander Adama. There is not a lot he can do to push back. He's got a single Ilsheva, actually 2 Ilshevas out now. Those guys will be able to do a little bit of damage, but Gorton probably has overcharged. Let's just give a real quick check. He's got a full storage of energy. He's got 9,000 in the tank, and that is going to be plenty to overcharge away and take those T2 units out. So that pretty much negates that T2 upgrade that Commander Adama has got, and that ACU is now looking a little bit suicidal. He is down into the yellow, 7,800 HP. He is coming into range of a lot of units from Gorton. Gorton, of course, has that gun upgrade, and that is going to be very, very problematic for the UEF clan because Commander Adama is on his last legs. He is just about to die. The ACU nice and safe for Steinklotz, so we are not going to see a dual ejection just yet. And there goes the ACU, so Gorton managing to dispatch Commander Adama pretty handily. I think that T2 upgrade was a little bit of a mistake in this occasion because that meant that he just did not have the units online. The Elshivers were overcharged by Gorton, and that just means that that was entirely ineffective. And unfortunately for the UEF clan, that does mean that Steinklotz is down here all by himself. He has managed to throw up a single T2 PD. He's now on upgrade, and he is going to try and hold the position for as long as he can. But unfortunately for him, there is just nothing that he can do. We can see the sheer amount of T1 spamming out of the factories there. Gorton managing to spam up a few as well. He's actually thrown some obsidians together, so he has made that T2 shift as well, and he is bringing those guys down to bear. There is no air to speak of online for the UF clan, and there is quite good air control, including a few bombers. There's probably a little bit of AA floating around. Static AA? No? Yes, there we go. There's a couple of T1 AA railguns, and those will be able to do a little bit against the bombers if Hazard does throw those guys in, but at this point it doesn't really make too much difference because the game is pretty much over. We're just waiting for these guys to build up enough to throw the final assault together and make their way through. There is a few triads online, one on this side, just a single triad put together by that Tech 2 Sparky, and then down here the ACU has thrown together one as well. So a little bit of a defense online, but absolutely nothing in comparison to the amount of spam that is coming his way, and we will very shortly see Olex grabbing another kill. I would suspect he just needs to deal with that triad, and then that ACU is going to go down. The Aurora's coming in, starting to take, well, lay fire down on that triad. It's taking fire, down it goes. It actually gets a little bit of veterancy, interestingly enough, and Steinklotz down into the red, and boom, he is gone. Alright, so that was a nice little 3v3 matchup. Unfortunately for the UEF clan, not at all able to cope with the onslaught from Vor. How were we in terms of rating matchup? I think there was probably a little bit of an advantage there to the Vor clan, and that shows in the speed at which they were able to knock those guys out. Alright, so that was a very, very quick, actually. It was just on 10 minutes, exactly 10 minutes on the clock, and that brings that 3v3 on Finn's Revenge to an end, and that racks up, I think, a few more points for the Vor clan. Of course, they did not play last week, so they are just getting on the scoreboard for the first time this week in the IGC. So this is, of course, week 2. Well, we had a couple of matchups last week. There have been quite a few scheduling issues, and that has slowed down play just a little bit, but they have managed to get underway. I think the E-Clan is the only one left that needs to get some points on the board. They've got a few matches to play after the last games of round 7, which is going to come at the end of the season. So a little bit of catch up for those guys, and let's see what have we got in the way of other games that we can spot. Let's jump into Blast Chill's games. This is another Boar matchup against UEF, and this one is on Tabula Rasa. So we're just loading that game up now. We're going to get that underway, and this is going to be 4v4, and get some of the last games of this week's action underway. Alright, let's get into our game and see how Boar is going to fare this time around. Alright, so we've got the Boar Clan Break-A-Wish Foundation, and they are fighting the Joint Economy Warfare, or JEW, clan. On the left, we have got JEW, so we're starting with Manred. He has gone for UEF. He has opted for a first land factory, which is not surprising. Beside him, we have got Robogear, who is also UEF. He's throwing down a first land factory. And next, for these guys, we have got Jurgi, I'm not quite sure the pronunciation on that guy. He has actually opted for Seraphim this time around, and we can see the last player for this clan, Gibmas, and he is gone UEF as well. Over here for Break-A-Wish, we are starting with Postal. He has gone Cyber, and he's thrown down his first land factory, getting his power grid underway. We've got Tagada, and he is opted for Aeon this time, and he is moving his ACU out to the center to scoop up some of that reclaim. We have got Mephi in his customary green color. He has opted for UEF this time. He has got his land factory down and getting his power grid, also moving his ACU to the center. And last but not least, we have got Blast Shield for the Break-A-Wish Foundation. confrontation, and he has opted for Seraphim. He has thrown down his first land factory, and he is moving his ACU to the center to scoop up some of this mass. Of course, being tabula rasa, there is a lot of mass, well, scattered around the center there, and we will see a rush for the middle because there is just too much here to pass up and give to the other team. So we'll see a lot of action, and often the ACUs will be jumping into the ponds to upgrade once they get low on HP. We can see pretty much every commander is on the move, and it looks like the only one is Manred, who's a bit slow out of the gates, and he is now on the way over. Unfortunately, getting tangled up on his scout just a little bit and slowing up his ACU. That might give a little bit more of an opportunity to blast chilled to be able to get in there and grab the reclaim. And we can see there's actually a Zui already out for blast chilled, and he's going to come in and perhaps try and scoop up any engineers that are cheekily trying to grab a little bit of early reclaim. We can see there is a flare out as well, and that is for Tagada, and he is just trying to do the same thing just in case there are any engineers which are cheekily trying to be first out to the pile of mass, and he is just going to make sure they would die if they tried that. But unfortunately for him, the units that are coming in to scoop up the mass are the ACUs, so we will see ACU confrontation in the center, and we'll see who comes out better off from that exchange. There are a few more units in support here for the JEW clan. There's just a few more bots floating around, and that flare does go down by Joegi's ACU, and Joegi will, well, actually he's coming over to assist. The plan probably is to push away any ACUs that come across from the right and just beat them with sheer numbers. Well, actually it is going to be 2 versus 2 right in the center here. We've got Robogear and Jogi here for the JEW, and then we have got Tagada and Mephi crowing in the center as well. So we'll see a little bit of ACU on ACU action once these guys start, well, once these guys are finished pulling up the reclaim and get their guns into play. A nice little raiding unit has been spotted, and that is coming in here. There are a few engineers that would be able to pick off. This guy here is a little bit vulnerable. Once he's got that mass extractor up, he will be able to put down those land factories, but he will have to make sure that that doesn't die. In fact, both of these engineers probably would die. He is focusing that land factory now. He needs to try and get that finished before the engineers go out. And we've actually got a Mantis coming in, and unfortunately he's misread it maybe just a little bit and not headed directly to where it needs to be, and that does give a little bit of an opportunity there for Robogear to get in, and a reclaim there from his engineer saves the day. The Mantis does come in, it's just a little bit too late to the party, and the factories will get finished there for Postal. How are these guys going for reclaim? They've both scooped up everything they can in the center there. They have not taken too much damage to their ACUs, and they're both heading back to their respective bases. In the center here, we've got Mephi and Robogear floating around this pile of mass. We have got Jogi and Tagada floating around this pile of mass, and they are just trading blow for blow, both down into the yellow. There, of course, is a couple more things online here for Jogi, and there's actually a T1 PD as well. So that's going to do a very nice job of securing the mass for the JEW clan and give them maybe just a little bit of a leg up. Mephi looking like he's got just a little bit of advantage here. Robogear, of course, doesn't want to get caught out. There's not enough units to be dangerous just yet, but if there's too many more online for Mephi, then Robogear will need to back up, and actually all of the massive save one little wreck has been scooped up by those guys. In terms of economy, we have got Mephi leading the pack, sitting at 29 mass per tick. Following him, we've got Tagada on 27. Then we've got Manred, and, well, Robogear's just jumped up to 29 as well. Manred on 25. Then we've got Jogi, Blast Chilled, sitting on 19, just clocking over 21, and Gibmas 21, as well as Postal. So reasonably even between the two teams at this point, and Robogear opting for an upgrade, so he's throwing down probably T2. Yes, that was there in the chat. He is getting T2, and that's probably going to result in a couple of T2 PDs in the center there, just to ward away the units and ACUs of the Boar clan. How is Blast Shield faring up here? Unfortunately, Manred has actually pushed him right back. So he was throwing down a few land factories. He had one completed and another one under construction, but Manred has pushed him right back. There are a bunch of, well, there's Lobos and a few Strikers in that mix, and that has just meant that Blast Shield is going to be pushed right back into his starting position. He is a little bit safe for the time being because the UEF of the JEW clan over here in Manred doesn't have any hover options until they get to T2. So that that does mean that he won't have any Auroras or Zoes floating over the water and assaulting his main base, but it does mean that he has ceded map control, and there is a half a dozen more mexes in the middle here that Manreed now holds. It is pretty much unanswered from Blast Shield, and in the south, the JEW clan is doing a lot better. They have made a pretty substantial foothold on the side of the island. He is UEF, of course, so Gibmas will be able to throw out his T1 tanks that are not hover and do a little bit of damage on the side, and that is going to force a confrontation between these two guys on land here and provide just a little bit more mass to the JEW clan now that they hold the islands on both sides, or hold the land masses. In the centre, how is that upgrade going for Robogear? He has just completed, and he is going to come out of that water and start probably a T2 PD would be the first order of business, and we can see that is going to go down there, and he's going to get that underway just about now. Actually, radar first, and then probably PD, and we'll see how Tagada manages to deal with that. Actually, Tagada is at the moment chasing away these pesky little strikers from Robogear. He's actually managing to get all up in the business of Postal. Actually, Postal is sending all of his guys towards the front line. He's probably got enough. Well, there's a little bit of an issue here for Gibmas in that he doesn't actually have the ability to move his ACU at the moment because he is on upgrade. So there is a lot of Mantis coming in, and he's going to have to be careful. He's got a few Lobos in that mix, so those guys are not going to be too effective against Mantis. And he's got a number of tanks, but he did manage to get a T1 PD completed, so that will force back the Mantis there from Postal. Postal bringing his ACU in and getting to work on the strikers that are chasing those Mantis, and he will be able to deal with those. That does mean that Postal is going to come off with just a little bit more in terms of land power in the immediate vicinity, and Gibmas, well, he's actually assisting that ACU upgrade, and he will be finished momentarily, and that will mean that he'll be able to get his ACU back. And did he tell us in chat? No, he doesn't have the notify mod on, so we'll see what that is. It is up to 15k HP, so that was T2. And now he has the ability to throw down Triad. So that's going to be very, very useful for Gibmas there in holding off that Mantis army. And in fact, the first thing he's doing was starting a factory upgrade for some reason, and then he decides better of it and switches up to PD. He's replacing that radar, and he's going to probably throw down a Triad any moment now. He's going to come forward and maybe just scoop up a little bit of that mass. How is he going for income? He's sitting on 29 income. That is pretty much the bottom of the pack in... Well, he's matching Blast Shield and Tagada, so the Boar clan is struggling a little bit in terms of mass generation right now. Mephi is doing very well. He's up to 43, but Manreed and Jurgi are both on, well, 49 and 55, so a little bit of an eco advantage accruing on the left-hand side. We can see that T2PD has gone down in the centre there for Robogear. That's going to just help ward away. Well, Mephi has actually done the same thing. He has thrown down a Triad as well, and there's going to be a little bit of a PD war in the centre if any of these guys try and move up. Let's see how this battle is going down in the south, and it looks like Gibmas is actually under a little bit of pressure here. The ACU coming up for Postal has caused a little bit of a problem, and Gibmas is actually taking a lot of fire. He's down to 6,500, 6,400, and Postal is still up in the green at 9k HP. The two PDs have gone down, and Gibmas is actually looking like he's in a bit of trouble here because he is, well, he's tangled up on those Mantis. The pathfinding is absolutely ruining him. He's down to 2,700, 2,500 HP, and at this point it looks like Postal is going to be able to walk away with the kill because he's down to 600, 400, 100, and that is the end of Gibmas. So a definite turn of events in the bottom there. Gibmas was doing so well. He had the advantage in the south, he had the land control over the other side, but unfortunately he just let his ACU get caught up by a Mantis swarm. The ACU for Postal managing to take him out, and that leaves the JEW clan a player down, which is very interesting because they still have that eco advantage, and well, there's another one of the same thing going on there, and actually that was down to T1 PD and Blast Shield's ACU managing to take out Manreed. So it looked like it was going to go the way of the JEW clan. They had the map control, they had the eco advantage, but suddenly within the space of just a minute, they've lost 2 ACUs, and both of those guys have left gaping holes in the landscape where there used to be functioning bases, and that is going to put an immense amount of pressure on the JEW clan. They were doing a very nice opening, they were doing so well, but unfortunately they've just managed to lose 2 ACUs in quick succession, and that is going to be that's going to be a fatal blow, I suspect, because there is not a lot that these two guys can do. Manred was doing very well in the eco game. He was sitting on 50 mass per tick. So we've got Georgi sitting on 59 out in front of the pack, and RoboGear on 50. So nice ecos for the JW clan, but unfortunately just not enough to compete with 4 functioning ecos on the right hand side, and that is going to be a severe problem. We can see there are a whole lot of Zoes now spamming in from Blast Shield. He is free to do whatever he likes with those guys, probably head straight up into the build power that RoboGear is trying to do to reclaim all of the base there from Manred. So unfortunately it's going to lay an end to that, and actually there's engineers coming straight in on a transport. There doesn't look to be any interceptors online to bring that guy down, so all the interceptors are for Georgi in the center here. They are a little bit far away to deal with that. The scouts have picked up the fact that transport exists. There is a response from those interceptors. We can see them mobilizing now, but unfortunately they'll be a little bit too late, and there's going to be a whole stack of engineers online, and we've got a little bit of a pause there. Alright, carrying on. And it looks like we may have actually caught up. I'm going to have to slow this down, and this will be the second game this afternoon that we have run into problems with connections and causing the whole thing to grind to a halt. So interestingly, Blast Shield actually leaving 1 engineer on board there, and he's got 4 on the ground. Let's see if those guys are going to start grabbing reclaim and doing a little bit of damage to the engineers there for RoboGear and stop him being able to grab that extra mass. We'll see how much Blast Shield can steal away from RoboGear. RoboGear does have a few tanks heading into the area now, so those guys will be able to defend. And let's just bring that back up to 0 speed now. And unfortunately it looks like Blast Shield has actually forgotten about those engineers for the most part, and they are now just throwing up a radar, and they are now coming under reclaim from RoboGear's engineers. So a little bit of a misstep there that will all go to waste. Of course, Mephi trying to get in on the action as well. He's bringing in a couple of tanks to assist. I think there's a couple of pillars on there, and those guys are going to be quite well. Yep, there we go. They're on the ground, and they're going to do a lot of damage to the expansion plans that RoboGear had for Manred's old base. Looks like Georgi has managed to reclaim a lot of what was in Gibmas's old base, but he is coming under fire. It looks like a little bit of a drop there from Postal, but the Ilshivas for Georgi have spotted that and are going to roll in and dispatch those guys. That PD going down, and that is a little bit of a failed attempt at a grab there for Postal, unfortunately for him. But at this point it's not going to make too much of a difference. In fact, there are a bunch of units coming in on a transport there for Postal. He's dropping them just on the beach there, so we've got a Rhino and a bunch of Mantis, and those guys are probably going to have a little bit of trouble taking on the 4 Ilshivas that are guarding the area for Georgi. So Georgi doing a reasonable job of securing that base that Gibmas had. He did pick up the reclaim, and he's now starting to rebuild the economy that was there. Of course, there are only 2 ACUs left, and they are both in the center, and once those guys are gone, there is no coming back for the GEW clan, and that will be the end of it. So the pillars looks like they have been lost there. That Mephi dropped. There are a bunch of Zoes in just trying to do a little bit of work. Actually, there's still one of those pillars online in the yellow, and a couple of engineers. So that looks like it's probably going to be a little bit of a hold. Well, in saying that, there are 3 pillars ready to go, and well, there's actually a T2 PD, so that is going to be problematic. So it probably will be a hold for Mephi and Blast Shield, just securing a little bit of a foothold there and grabbing all of the mass points that Manred used to own. And there are a stack of engineers coming through, just picking up everything they can. In fact, there's some more wrecks here, and that is going to be more mass into the coffers for Blast Shield. We've got a nice little Air Force online here for Tagada. He has so far not featured a huge amount in this game. He has built a little fire base in the middle to try and take on RoboGear, and he's coming under fire from mobile missile launchers. He's spamming up TAC missile defense, and of course those volcanoes for for Aeon, they are going to be fantastic at warding off tons of TAC missiles, well, mobile missiles coming in from those mobile missile launchers. Flapjacks. Alright, it looks like it has been a little bit of a loss there for Jurgi, so he wasn't able to hold. There was a few more units brought in here from Postal. He has managed to clear out the Ilshivas that were there. That has taken down the base that was remaining, and he's still shipping in more. So this is going to be a little bit of a problem because there's actually nothing in between here and the back of Jurgi's base. So the mass extractors, the engineers, the build capacity, that is all vulnerable to a push now, and we can see that they're actually on the move. So those mantis are going to come in and start making a little bit of a problem there for Jurgi. So it looks like they are getting hemmed in just a little bit. The ACUs are probably going to be left out in the centre all by themselves, and the bases are probably going to evaporate in fairly short order now that these guys have got these footholds, the extra eco and the build power all in. And there's actually a stack of gunships online. How much is there online for anti-air for these guys? RoboGear does not have a lot at all. I don't think he's got half a dozen interceptors here. He's just brought some flak out onto the field. He doesn't have a lot in the centre here. He's got very little AA, just a single railgun, and that would mean that the centre is very, very vulnerable to those gunships. So I'm not quite sure why Mephi is heading up the main base there, because he's taken a lot of losses for his gunships. The centre here is actually very vulnerable, and we've got one flak down for Jurgi, so he is going to be reasonably safe from gunships at the moment. But these mantis are absolutely having a field day. They are ripping away all of the build capacity that you get. There is a point defense that has gone down. A couple of point defense managed to be spammed up by those engineers. They will manage to take out most of Postal's assaulting force without losing too much. There was a bunch of engineers gone down, but very little actual infrastructure. None of the mass extractors, well, I think maybe a single PGen went down for that assault. So Jurgi coming very well off in terms of that exchange, and he has managed to secure this area once again, and he has got a bunch of Ilshivas ready to go for any more drops that Postal has planned. Things are looking a little bit more static now. They've got a nice foothold, so the Boar clan has a nice foothold up in the north here. They have managed to grab a lot of reclaim. They've got a lot of forces floating around, and they are really just building up and getting ready to hem the JEW clan members in. So we've got, in terms of eco, Mephi is leading the pack, 115 mass per tick. He is leading Jurgi at 104. So these guys, Jew clan, well, they're not completely out of it yet. They still have a little bit of a chance. Jurgi is actually getting that upgrade, and that could be a T3 upgrade, I suspect, and that could give a little bit of an opportunity there for Jurgi, but he may be spending a little bit too much on that and upgrading his mixes, and maybe he's not going to be able to put together enough of a fight. Although in saying that, there is actually not a lot coming their way. Looks like Postal is continuing to only drop. He's not really focusing on any land forces down here. He is just managing to eco up. He's solidifying his economy and just making sure everything is safe. Tagada, he is focusing on air. He is probably thinking about pushing to a T3 air factory, and we've got that upgrade going on there. So that is going to get an advantage to him. I wonder if he has got RAS. Let's just have a quick look. He's got 1.6k power, so that is definitely not RAS, and he is still a wee way off being able to field T3 air. He's actually got an upgrade on his ACU right now. Does he have the Notify mod? He does have Notify mod on, and he is upgrading RAS. So that is what is happening in the center. So we'll see some T3 air and potentially some strat bombers out, which will be completely unanswerable by the JEW clan at this point. So we are, well, I would speed this up a little bit at this point, but I did have a little bit of a pause before, so I suspect we may be not running too far ahead of the real-time match, so I'm not sure that we've got too much up our sleeves to be able to do that. It looks like RoboGear is trying desperately to assault this position to take away the advantage that Mephi has gained. In fact, there is a tack launcher back there for Mephi, and that will be hammering the eco of RoboGear. That is, of course, a problem for him because you would tend to build your attack missile defenses out the front of your base so that anything coming from the enemy position is intercepted, but of course we can see there's nothing in the back here to be able to stop attack missiles, and it would be free reign for a attack launcher back here to hit a number of Tech 2 mass extractors, and if it can get through the shield, then there's a couple of Tech 2 PGens as well, which would be nice juicy targets. We can see the fight is still going on, but RoboGear just not quite having enough to be able to push back. He's got a number of pillars in that mix. He's got quite a lot of firepower, but there's a couple of triads online, there are a bunch of tanks, there are shields. It is a very difficult position to assault at this time, and if Mephi can take away the flak which is mixed through that army, then of course he has a stack of gunships at his disposal to eat his way through the rest of it. There's, well, I can see 3-4 flak, so it will be a little bit of an ask to be able to bring those gunships into play, but he may be able to. And there's actually a TAC missile inbound here, and that is going after, well, it looks like the factory, so it looks like RoboGear is just investing a little bit in trying to get rid of the build capacity, the build power that Blast Shield is throwing up in the back here, and that is going to pretty handily defeat that expansion. So that will go down. There is a T2 land factory, and that will be, I think the plan is probably to be able to spew out Ilshivas, and that's, no, it's actually engineers by the looks of it, but that is going to disappear momentarily, I would suggest, because this TAC missile is online and it's hammering that. I'm not sure if that's a particularly good investment, because those TAC missiles are reasonably expensive given the cost of a T1 factory that he has been destroying, but it will definitely help to just try and remove the threat, the immediate threat. And there's actually a bunch of gunships coming in, and how much is there in the way of air defense? There's still not a lot of air defense online. There's no flak in the area, there's not that many interceptors. The well, RoboGear's ACU is actually very vulnerable. I'm not sure whether these guys know it. Let's just quickly jump over to the Boar Clan's point of view and have a quick look. They're bringing their interceptors in to defend those gunships, but I'm not sure they're aware just how much of an advantage they have in the air game and how easily they could take out RoboGear's ACU. So RoboGear definitely very vulnerable. I'm not sure if he realizes it, because he isn't making any efforts to throw down some flak or get any mobile flak out into the area for his ACU, so he probably hasn't really thought about the fact that the gunships could easily take him out very quickly at this point. And we've got a little bit of a static war still going on up here. There is just artillery fire being exchanged between these two guys. There's Zoes for Blast Shield and Lobos up there for RoboGear, and they're just moving in. Those Zoes are going to get absolutely pounded by the units. That is not a very good exchange, but there's still a lot of pillars here for Mephi in ready to back them up. So that is still going to be a held position for Mephi. Juegi managing to nicely expand back into the bottom left, and he's grabbing a bunch of reclaim. There's still a bit more reclaim that he can grab. He's put a land factory down and probably spamming out engineers on attack move, and that is exactly what is happening. There is, well, it's still only T1P mixes in that area, so still an advantage. In terms of overall economy, we've got Mephi leading the way at 177, but Juegi doing actually a fantastic job of keeping up with him at 171. Blast Shield coming in at 124 and 129 for Postal. So there's still just a massive advantage in terms of eco on the right-hand side for the Boar Clan, and interestingly, it looks like the gunships are being used to take out economy, and it looks like RoboGear did realise that he was a little bit vulnerable and throw up a flak, so that is going to help him. And all the interceptors are moving in for Juegi, and it looks like there's probably enough online to fend off everything that Blast Shield's got. Now, Mephi does have a number of interceptors online, but they are sitting back here at home and not doing a heck of a lot, although the Swift Winds, okay, so T2 for Tagada, so he still hasn't featured too much. His Swift Winds are there. He does have that ASF online now that he's completed RAS, and those ASF are going to roll in and demolish those T1 interceptors for Juegi. So that pretty much brings the air control back firmly into the hands of the Boar Clan. Okay, and we can see that Blast Shield has actually finished his advanced res as well, so that means there is an absolute ton of power online for the right hand side, and that is going to fuel the game even more. There are a number of T1 bombers online. I'm not quite sure about the decision to stockpile T1 bombers when he could be throwing together some strat bombers. Let's just have a quick look at what he is doing. Let's jump into his factory here, and we can see that he's still just got ASF and scouts planned. So as yet, no shift to strat bombers, which would pretty quickly end this game because they hold air control pretty well. Although in saying that, there is a T3 mobile anti-air, so lightning tank out Seraphim, and that will be able to do a little bit of damage to the strat bombers as they pass over here. But of course those guys are not everywhere, although it looks like Juegi is actually making a pretty good effort at dispersing AA around the field and protecting himself from a potential strat bomber snipe. There is a couple of SAMs online in this firebase here. He has got those mobile AA out, so a reasonable showing there, but it looks like Mephi has switched up to Percival's and is now stomping his way through the back of RoboGear's base. There's nothing that RoboGear can do against Percy's. They are way too tanky. They've got way too much Alpha Strike. They're going to just walk through the back of the base, and that is exactly what is happening. And it looks like we've got another bit of a freeze, so I wonder if we're just a little bit catching up to where the library plays out. Let's just slow that down a little bit. And at this point, it doesn't actually make too much difference anyway, because Mephi is going to slam through the back of the base there for RoboGear, and that is going to leave just his ACU and a forward fire base with not much economy to speak of, and that will leave Jurgi pretty much by himself to face a large number of opponents. So even if he was to be able to pull something out, maybe get an experimental together, he is not going to be able to do enough to counter it. And I think we might actually have to drop out of this game, because we are not having a really good time at all with catching up to the live games. Alright, there, it's just resumed now, so things just starting to get underway. They could potentially have connection problems, or maybe even a bottleneck CPU and slowing them down in the actual game, and we're just catching up a little bit. So I'm not sure how much longer we can actually withstand this, but we'll just watch the Percival stomp through the back of the base. They are just wandering through, and we can see that lightning tank going to work on the gunships that are floating around, so it's going to be pretty handy at dismantling those. But of course, it's not going to be able to do much against the Percivals. It can switch over to ground fire mode, but the Percies are going to be just a bit too strong. And there's also PD up on the hill, just to add insult to injury. We've got a few firing down on RoboGear's base. Interestingly enough, looks like Jogi is still on upgrade. He's got a bunch of engineers. No, he's finished that T3 upgrade, and he is throwing down a Thoda, so he is doing his utmost to fight back, and he is going to get that together, I would say, before there's too much online to stop him. The Boar clan is not really focusing on the center right now. They are just hitting the back of the base, so Mephi doing a fantastic job of eliminating RoboGear's base, but the middle is largely unassaulted, and the JEW clan does actually hold that, and they are getting it done. That has been spotted now, and the ping goes down, so we should momentarily see a response to that. We'll see either strap bombers to be able to take that guy out, or a little bit of air, or a bunch of T3. I'm not quite sure what they'll do, although it probably is not too necessary. The ACU for RoboGear is now coming into range of those Percivals, and we can see exactly how fast those Percies dismantle the armor on the ACU, and boom, that was so quick, and down goes RoboGear, leaving Jogi all alone. He is going to maybe complete that Thoda. It is sitting at about 75%, well up into the green, and that is going to get completed, I would say, but I'm not sure whether he can get any work done with that, especially because there are a bunch of Percivals. So he is going to either have to come back and combat the Percivals and commit the Thoda backwards, and that will leave him open to an assault from the front, because of course there are a big stack of Percies here, and the other option he has is go straight for some ACU kills, but he will need to get all the way back, and Mephi's actually in the water right now, so that is going to make him extremely difficult to kill with an Thoda. And where is the other ACU? We've got one back here, so it might be possible to get the Thoda right up into Tagada's base and take him out, but unfortunately there is already a spider online, so that pretty much leaves no options there for Jogi. He is all out, and the Percivals here are actually free to wander right through, and we can see there is a little bit of a move order given once again. Those Percivals are going to be able to waltz right through the back of Jogi's base, dismantle his economy. The Thoda does get online. He is coming forward. He is going to go and take out the mobile missile launchers which have been harassing his fire base, so he will quickly deal with those. They are going to go down exceptionally quickly, but there is a Monkey Lord, and we might see a little bit of air support as well. Actually, torpedo bombers. It looks like Tagada is going for a snipe. He is amassing torpedo bombers. They are only T2. It will take a few passes probably to kill the ACU with those guys, and he has got eyes on. Let's just see where he is going with those. He is now coming around, and he is going to lay down fire on that ACU, which is now building a second Thoda, and the Torp bombers do start taking hits. Unfortunately, they just don't do enough damage. There's single pass, because of course there are SAMs in the forward fire base which are still operational. That means the torpedo bombers are only going to get one pass, and he pretty much needed 3 to 4 times as many torp bombers as he had for that run, so that did not work effectively at all. The spider is coming in for Postal. And where did the Ethota go? The Ethota is actually coming back. So this is what we're talking about, having to come back and defend his base. So he's trying to commit that Ethota to come back and destroy those Percivals, which are laying waste to his base, which is the only option he has to keep his economy online. But of course that means that he is opening up his front line to anything that the Boar clan want to throw at him, and in this case it is a Monkey Lord, and the Monkey Lord is going to wander straight through. It destroys all of the AA, and with that spider bot in place he won't actually be able to destroy the ACU underwater, but it will be able to destroy any AA which is floating around and open up the way for Torp bombers. And we can see another Torp bomber run, and there's still one SAM online which has been pinged, and the spider bot really needs to deal with that, and there it goes, it is taking that out. So that means the Torp bombers are now pretty much free. There are a bunch of lightning tanks back here, so the Torp bombers, if they come into range, they will get taken out, but for the most part the Torp bombers are free to take out that ACU, which is exactly what they're going to do, and there it goes. So that is the end of Juriki. A valiant fight, but unfortunately just not enough to take on the combined might of 4 Break-A-Wish Foundation players at the same time. And given that Mephi is in that mix, and we all know that Mephi is actually reasonably good at this game, he has played it once or twice, and he is going to take, the Boar clan is going to take the win. Alright, what shall we do now? We've probably got an opportunity to jump into one more game. Let's bring us back to here, and let's see if we can find anything else in the FAF client. And the games are all over, and that was the last 4v4, so I'm not sure if we'll bother actually. Okay, so that is pretty much, I think, all that we'll run through for now, because we have been at it for a couple of hours now. We've gotten through right through to the 4v4, which is of course the last map of the